Hi, thank you for being part of our Pots for Joy community project. I wanted to take a second and just show you how to make your little pots. So I have some clay here that I picked up from the studio, and the rest of the items you can actually find at your house. So if you can find a ruler, that will be really helpful. A rolling pin, those are the two most important things. And then just grab an old sheet. Luckily, we usually use, of course, canvas at the studio, but an old sheet will work just fine to roll your clay out. So, and then I have a bunch of different tools here, and I'll get to that in just a second. So the first thing is to actually roll your clay out to make the start of your little pot. So I normally just kind of smash it down with my hands to begin with. Saves you on some rolling time. And then if you can find like two pencils that haven't been used that are nice and long, something like that to keep your rolling pin even, that would be really helpful. I wasn't able to find anything like that, so I'm going to just roll really slowly and try to keep my clay as even as possible. The thickness that we're going for is 1/4 inch. So every once in a while you'll want to just flip your clay over or spin it so that you're getting a nice even piece. And the pot size that we're going to be going for today is actually pretty small because we want to just put like 3 to 5 little flowers into each of these pots that will be going into our retirement communities. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm rolling. So I'm actually trying to roll out a nice long piece of clay. So my goal here is to get a piece long enough to be my sides and my bottom of my pot. So I think I'm just about there. I can show you the thickness that I have here. Really don't want to go any thinner than this, okay? Because then it'll start to crack as it dries. So with my long piece of clay here, I'm going to find just a little circle. This circle is about 2 inches long, okay? So not very big. And that's going to be what my base of my little pot is. So I can set it here. A couple of things that I found just in the house to cut my clay. Of course, just a regular kitchen knife, and then also a nail file that works kind of in the place of our little needle tool that we normally have. So I'm going to trace this. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be roughing it up a little bit anyway. So that's going to be the base of my tiny little pot. And then I'm going to use the rest of this clay to wrap around my pot. So again, this was 2 inches. We really don't want our pot to be any more than 6 inches long for our clay piece here. So I'm going to just cut a nice straight piece. So this could be the bottom of my pot and the top of my pot. I'll show you in a second here what that really looks like. So this is going to be wrapping around my base, and you can see I have lots of extra clay. I like to actually roll this up a little bit to see how much extra I can cut off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. You can hear one of our babies hiccuping in the background. Getting close here. So I'm just butting that up to the edge. That looks pretty good. Just like that. I'm going to check to see. It looks like this might be a little bit more than 6 inches, so I'm going to check that before I start to put it together. Okay, and it's actually right on 6 inches. I think I'm going to cut it down just a little bit more. So I can use my ruler to keep my lines nice and straight. These pots don't have to be perfect. If you want to add some little funky edges to it, by all means go ahead. That's one of the fun parts about sending this out into the community is we're going to have hundreds of different pots that are from the same clay but all created a little bit differently. I'm using a couple of just toothpicks here, and I'm going to rough up the bottom here because I'm about to attach these 2 pieces of clay. So I'm just using the toothpicks to give those little edges. These work as like Velcro. So when I add my 2 pieces together, all of these little lines will actually sink together and like Velcro, stick our clay together. So I'm just going around the edges, lots of little lines. And then before I attach these two together, I might want to add some kind of texture. So this would be the inside of my pot. So on the outside, I already have a little texture just from the sheet here, which I can get rid of with my hands just by kind of rubbing against it. I have a bunch of different ideas, and in the written directions, I've taken some more pictures for you of different things that you could use, but I'm just, for video's sake, going to just lay a couple of these out, these little noodles, roll over them, and make that my kind of fun little texture. Might add just a couple more here. Remember, it's really important that you don't let your clay get too thin. So I already rolled it out to that 1/4 of an inch thick. I really don't want it to thin down any more than that. So I'm pushing pretty lightly with my noodles here because I don't want my pot to start to break from being too thin. Okay, so just a quick little texture. You of course can spend some more time and add whatever little details you want. So now I'm ready. I have both of these sides roughed up. I'm gonna take a little bit of water. In the studio, we normally use slip, but this will work just fine. So I'm just blotting on a little bit of water all the way around this edge. And then I'm gonna lay this down and wrap my clay around it. Okay, and I'm just pushing with my fingers down at that very bottom to try to get that sealed best I can. Okay, you can choose to rough all these edges up as well and then close it up. I'm gonna do that for part of this just so you can see what that would look like. So we're gonna rough up with our little stick here. Add some water in that area. Again, this is in place of using slip. So you're trying to get the clay to be a little bit gooey so that it'll stick together well. And then you just use your hands to really get rid of that seam. Once the seam can't be seen by your eyes anymore, that's a really good sign that you've done an okay job of sealing that up. So I'm gonna take this one up just a little bit more, so I need to rough it up just a little bit. Now I can go all the way up with this seam if I want to seal the whole thing to make it just a nice cylinder pot, or I can leave a little bit just to give it like a little design. Once you have your seam here closed up really nicely, I would carefully pick the whole thing up, flip it onto its top so that you can seal this up really well. This is important, right? Because we don't want our vases to leak. So I'm just taking my finger and going around. Again, once you can't see that seam anymore, you're usually pretty good if you've added a little water, that it should stay sealed as it dries. Okay, so there's my little pot. I could go around the edges and do some like fun little designs. I could go in and add more texture. It's definitely easier to add the texture before you raise your pot, but if you decide that you have something else that you want to do to it, by all means go for it. Okay, you can use a little tool, maybe have someone help you hold your pot upside down, and you can write your name. I'm gonna write R-A-W for Redmond Artworks. Okay, and then there's going to be a little tag that also comes with your clay that we'd love for you to fill out that just says your name, your age. Of course, if you're an adult, we still want you to do this project. Just go ahead and share that you're an adult, but we thought that'd be a fun way for all of the retirement community people that get these pots to be able to see exactly who in their community cared enough to make them a little present. So thank you so much for being a part of our project here, and we really appreciate the support.